everybody. I'm Candid Stanisci of CFL Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Don't forget to subscribe to Candid Stanisci 1030 on YouTube. Joining me as usual is our resident expert on the Canadian Football League, David Morassutti, who asked all the poignant questions yesterday in the victory by the Toronto Argonauts, a game that, as predicted by you and I, was going to be defined by the defenses. And no matter how you slice it, even though we have to take a hats off, and I'm wearing my invisible hat, to obviously the special teams of the Toronto Argonauts that seem to trigger the game in their favor.
Yeah, I mean, first off, you use the term expert quite loosely. But that game, you it's funny because I don't remember the players do a good job to motivate themselves for a matchup like this. And them saying that the media was hyping up the matchup between the defenses and it wasn't really them. It wasn't me.
Wasn't me. And as far as I know, the media was reporting the comments made by the teams about each other and the discussion about, so your defense is better than our defense? Sure it is.
Yeah, so I think this game was definitely settled by the defenses because look, BC's offense was good except for the one issue of turnovers. If you really look at the stats, you take away the turnovers and you would have thought that BC was the better team. But that's
in case the stats lie.
It just goes to show that, you know what, but the Argos, I'll give them a lot of credit. Not only did they have the 6 turnovers, the 6 interceptions, which I was saying in the press box yesterday, that was the first time I had ever been to a game or even really seen a game where a quarterback threw 6 interceptions in a single game. And on top of that, not only were the interceptions impressive by the Argos defense, but the pressure that they got on Vernon Adams Jr. Like, there's a reason why he threw 6 interceptions. He was sacked 4 times in that game, and probably could have been sacked more in that game, in my opinion. So, I think this game was definitely the Argos' ability to show that they can hang with the best teams in the league. Now, maybe for some people who thought BC were the
invincible,
yeah. It changed. This is the issue with declaring one team as the favorite 3 weeks into the season, 4 weeks into the season. It's an 18-game season. There's a lot of football to be played. We have seen teams have really good starts and fallen off, and we have seen teams have some okay starts, have a really good finish, and then go on to win a Grey Cup.
To highlight what you're saying, to put it simply, statistics do lie. They don't tell the whole story, but they do tell a story. And the story, on a positive note, for BC was 24 of 39 for 388 yards, an average of 9.9 yards per toss. Tells you if you stop there, and then add this stat, 3 touchdowns. If you stop there, it seems like this should be a really good game for the quarterback and the team with those stats. But it's that 6 interceptions, which I know I probably sound like a broken record. I always refer to the fact that interceptions dictate how a game ends, and this case it wasn't just an interception; it was 6 interceptions. And the other thing I'll say is that the score was closer than it ended. I say this because usually we talk about garbage time when a team narrows the gap and the defense of the team ahead allows the other team to make advances, bend, don't break, that old principle. In this case, I think the garbage time went totally to the Argos' advantages with the last two touchdowns.
Oh yeah, I mean the last two touchdowns really, when you're able to first off get the turnovers, it's one thing to get the turnovers, it's another to convert on the turnovers, right? And
Right.
so, that's the calling card of a good team that's able to take advantage of the mistakes of their opponent. The Argos did that. I mean, I think almost not every interception led to points, but a
24
majority
in
of them
total.
did.
24 in total points off
Yeah,
those interceptions.
right? Because that was the thing about the Argos. They really did struggle to generate drives on their own when, especially at the start of the game. They weren't really able to put together drives. But when you're able to shorten the field because your defense is able to get halfway there majority of the time, it makes it so much easier. So if there's a caveat, if you're BC, they made it tough on the Argos. This was not an easy win by any stretch. And if you're an Argos fan, you love the way your defense plays, but I will say, let's see what happens when they're not getting those turnovers and the offense is forced to go down the field and drive down the full length of the field too.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I will say this on behalf of Chad Kelly and the offense: they did what they needed to do and got it done when it needed to be done. That's essentially, what an offense needs to do, especially when they have a defense as good as the Argos have. And in the case of BC, they have a great defense too. We joked at the beginning about the fact there were these comments thrown back and forth about which defense was better, all that kind of stuff between the two defensive teams. But one thing's for sure, and that is that the final score is what you're trying to achieve. And what the Argos did, and Chad Kelly, he didn't throw any interceptions. You know,
Yeah.
the difference is wide right there. Six against none. Ball security was an issue. There weren't really any fumbles. There was one in one. It was all interceptions. The only other, you know, the Argos, didn't make a third down attempt. They turned the ball over in downs. That was the only thing that happened that was negative for them. But we saw Chad Kelly do some third down stuff, and I found that surprising. And the coach, he talked about how it wasn't that worrisome. And in fact, Coach Dinwood, he said, "Well, usually on short yardage, quarterbacks don't really get hit that hard."
Yeah, it's not a
Okay,
but he's not totally wrong. They get piled on sometimes, but they're not. It's one thing when you're carrying the ball and the defender is open to hit you versus you're just trying to push the body and you're in the ball over and you've got a bit of a wall in front of you. So I get what he was saying about that, but there's also a reason why starting quarterbacks aren't doing those sneaks. It's because you want to limit any potential. One thing that can happen is a helmet, an accidental helmet to helmet. He could, as he's trying to lunge forward with the ball, he could hit a helmet and hurt his hand. There's a lot of things that can go wrong on a scramble play like that on the sneak. So I still think they got to figure out a way to get that out of Chad Kelly's hand and give it
Dukes, yeah,
to Dukes is something they're gonna have to work on. Dukes isn't the biggest quarterback. That is an issue. Usually
it's like 6'1", 220, I think, or a little
yeah,
less.
I'm not too sure of his of what his
That's
listed
that's what
as.
I think it is. But
Yeah,
but
6'1",
regardless,
205. You're not wrong.
so the thing of it is that he's not ready to do. The Dukes isn't ready to do that job. I think that's why, because he did. They sent him out there the first time, and then all of a sudden Chad Kelly came. Um, Chad Kelly, he's a lot of fun. I have to say this as well. I mean, he does enjoy doing what he's doing. He's a very animated personality as we could see it on the sidelines. And the biggest thing is that what we noticed yesterday, two of the stars of the team were players who have had injury issues, and they had a chance to shine last night, and that's all about, for example, Robertson taking 3 years to finally be a regular and be healthy.
Yeah, and you can tell how when I asked him about those 3 years, well, the time he's been off, and like when you're a player that deals with health issues, and this is not just in in the CFL he had those issues. The NFL was an issue too, where he wasn't able to stay healthy as well. But in the CFL, he's never played. I looked this up last night, and I totally forgot how many games he played, but he did not play a lot in his time in Calgary.
Right. And the coach mentioned that as well.
I have it here. He played 8 in his first season. He missed 2020. Everybody missed 2020 with the pandemic.
Pandemic.
2021, he played 2 games. That's when he had the concussion that kept him out. And then obviously last year, torn hamstring kept him out the year. And I asked him like, how does somebody who has been through all of those, I would say tough moments in their life, how are you able to overcome that? And he said, it's the fact that the organization stuck by him, and that's not usually something you see
Or here.
or hear. Usually in the CFL, organizations have to move on to find some. They have to move on in some way. And I thought that was quite telling when he said that the Argos stuck by him, the coaching staff stuck by him, because usually that doesn't happen. But if a team believes a player is worth it, they will do it, and he certainly was worth it. If you're saying,
That was Ryan Dinwiddie's opinion when he was in Calgary. He saw him there. He came to Toronto and he said he wanted to bring him to Toronto. And not only did he bring him to Toronto, he was patient enough to get healthy. And I think we saw the reason why he had so much faith in him. He was outstanding on the kick return.
yeah, he was, and um, yeah, like it's
Sorry, the interception return.
yeah. He even said like he wasn't, first one he felt like he could have ran longer. I was like, which one? There were so many of those, 3 of them. But yeah,
Actually, four. He deserves credit. He deserves half a credit for one of the ones that he's the one that punched the ball out of the basically receiver's path to get into another Argo, and he deserves as much credit for that fourth one. I
yeah,
think he was outstanding. I mean, clearly he showed what the coach really likes about him.
yeah. It's the whole defense. Yeah, it was a big thing. But yeah, when I remember asking Ryan Dinwiddie how was the team going to be able to overcome not having Jamal Peters. This is when we didn't think Jamal Peters was going to be coming back. And he's like, well, we got someone like Robertson Daniel. If he can stay healthy, we think he's going to be a good contributor for us. He's lived up to that bill, right? And now you have not only do you have Robertson Daniel healthy and contributing, you also got Jamal Peters back.
Yep.
That's what was going to make this Argos defense very tough. They got guys who, yeah, they'll give up yards, they'll give up plays, but if there is a play to be made, a turnover to be had, they're going to have it because that's what those coaches preach. I've talked to the defensive backs coach Josh Bell many times. I've talked with some of the DBs quite a bit, and they always preach going to get turnovers, and that's Corey Mace's system. That's why quite a few guys have actually wanted to come and play in Toronto because defensive backs want those opportunities, right? So they see those opportunities. It gives them it gets them pretty worked up for the game. Let's say that.
It's a very aggressive backfield.
Mm-hmm.
It's one that looks for the ball. They refer to flying out there. They spend a lot of time flying out there,
Right.
and they're always looking for opportunity. And the other thing is the confusion that they cause in the way they rotate. This is something they started building last year, where you really don't know who's going to play where. So if you're a quarterback or an offensive coordinator and you want to key on somebody, they make it difficult. You can't really key on anybody. You think you're keying on somebody, and they switch up, and that's I think what creates a lot of these opportunities for knockdowns and interceptions. They do a masterful job of masking, their defense, and that's part of the importance of game planning, right? And and then that's before the game. I'll stop there, and I'd like to also talk about the fact that how they do things at halftime and fix things. It's coaching has been a very important thing, and then on the subject of coaching, then you have Ryan Dinwiddie talking in the first person about what he's doing out there, basically in the quarterback's head.
Well, you're getting a sense of what Ryan Dinwiddie, the coach, is how he's seeing everything on the field, right? I found it interesting when he was talking to us. He said he got a little too hard headed about calling run plays when he felt like he could have passed the ball more. And I was thinking to myself, well, but Chad Kelly he had a tough time at times because of the pass rush where he took a sack where he could have thrown the ball away. And the best way that they were able to get rid of some of that pressure was by running the ball, especially late in the game where they needed to put that game away. And what did they do? They ran the ball. They said to AJ Willett and Andrew Harris, "Finish this off for us, guys," and that's what they did.
They did have a hard time though getting the run game going early, as they did. The offense had a hard time going. BC did what they're capable of doing, and what they deserve credit for, and that is they did stifle the offense of the Toronto Argonauts. But what happens in the beauty of football, we talked about the kick return that for a touchdown, how that changed the complexion of the game at that moment, where it looked like BC was going to score at will. It almost seemed like that score changed things a little bit. And while the offense started figuring things out, and let's not forget, the running game for the Argos wasn't so good early, and I think that's what Dinwiddie was talking about, is that they weren't getting anywhere with it, but he insisted on keep doing it, and eventually what happened was, well, that ended up bullying his way through. And for those that don't know, he's got a little bit of a nagging groin injury, so they're playing him, and trying to make him successful. And that's what this Argo team does. They appreciate each other, and the coach appreciates all the players, and he doesn't give up on them. And we talked about that with Robertson Daniel, the guy with a first and last name in reverse. I want to call him Daniel Robertson.
That's always a tough one. It's
And it's not Daniels, okay, Frank? It's not.
no, yeah. I think Dinwiddie has shown a better feel for the game, and and it helps that your quarterback is able to make plays, and he's able to improvise a little bit, and isn't gun shy. Let's go that. I think it's easy to say that Chad Kelly is not gun shy, and he had to show a little bit, especially with Uncle Jim and his in the crowd too.
Man to man.
Yep,
Man to man.
that was funny. That was for those who don't know. Uh, Chad Kelly wanted to make sure we asked about the man-to-man coverage that BC threw at him.
I cooperated with him.
Oh, Frank was more than willing to cooperate.
It was, it's amazing how also how dedicated they are to the thinking process. The players, all of them to a man, talk about their 1-0. They're not 3-0; they're 1-0. They talk about appreciating each other, and they talk about the game plan, and how they were unwilling to give away exactly what they were trying to do. It's amazing how thoughtful these players are, and okay, I'm talking about the Argos because we spend more time talking to them, but I do suspect most football players and most teams have that mentality. The difference between the good teams, the bad teams, and the great teams is how well they do those things.
Yeah, no, it really is. And look, I mean, we're talking so much about the Argos because, frankly, they've earned that right to have.
Who thought that they would, that score was not what people anticipated? A lot of people felt that the game would be decided in the second half, and it kind of was. Like I said, there were those two touchdowns, which were great touchdowns. Please, Argo fans, don't come after me. They were great
Please come after him.
touchdowns.
Go after him.
They were great touchdowns. They're fantastic touchdowns. But they were sort of gilding the lily, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, that's something they're gonna have to work on. This was their toughest test of the season.
So
Hamilton
far,
wasn't an easy game, but it was a game where they were able to control a little bit. Um, Winnipeg, Edmonton, they're just not a great team right now. This was their first real test of the season, and like you saw the struggles of going up against a team that plays at a higher caliber like BC.
yeah. They're 3-0, and they're going to have their second bye week.
I
Three
get
games in 2 bye weeks.
what they like about it is there's you talk to some of the players that say, you know what, we got some guys who are banged up. This is a good thing. But you also have the coach who's saying, well, we got a little bit of momentum here, and now we're off. Then they're playing 2 games on the road. They have the home game that's not a home game,
That's another game on the road,
and then they're not back at BMO Field until mid-August.
right? So
Like it's more than a month. Like some people say, you're not
absolutely,
back for another month. It's like a month
absolutely.
and a bit. That's like, fortunately, one of the games is Hamilton, so they're not having to travel out. So that's a good thing. I don't know if there's another Hamilton. I'm sure there's going to be some West games thrown in there as well in that period, but that's the tricky thing about CFL schedule making. So yeah, so they do
I
have.
wish I could say it was. Is it a coincidence that the schedule this year looks a lot like the schedule last year?
I'm sure there's there. Yeah, I mean, look, and the Argos have a trickier time because BMO Field is busy with TFC. You got the Indy, and then the Argos want the games when the CNE are around. They want at least one game to be in that time. I think they'll at least have one this year.
Yeah, they had one last year, and I think 2 years ago they had one, and 3 years ago they had two. They have, as far as the schedule is concerned. I know I'm probably accused of being a CFL apologist or whatever, but that game there were only 12,000 people there. Let's talk about that directly. And there were 12,000, and you pointed out. This is why I refer to you as the expert. You pointed out that last year, in the same schedule, the same team, the same week, they had 12,000 this year. They had 8,000 last year.
No, just over 9,000.
Just over nine? Okay.
Around 9,000, we'll say. They had about 3,000, just under 3,000 more for the second game against a team that historically they don't draw well. The BC Lions are not the Hamilton Tiger Cats. They're not the Montreal Alouettes. They're not the Saskatchewan Roughriders or even Winnipeg. There are certain teams that are just a tough draw because, first off, a flight from BC to Toronto is expensive, and if you're looking at selling a game to fans,
On
especially
the
those who.
third day of a long weekend, on a Monday of a long weekend, I mean, people are pretty burnt out by them.
So I've been getting some because when I threw out the tweet about the attendance, I just do that just to throw it out there as
Yeah, yeah.
information. I'm not making any criticisms or anything like that. Um, and some people says I like it because I got the day to get myself there, especially the long weekend. People are able to take their time coming home from the cottage and they can get to the game. But then you got those who say, well, my family can't go out because that's a late night, work the next day. Obviously, school's not a factor anymore. Some kids might have camp, summer school, who knows. I don't mind. I don't mind that this one was a Monday night because there's just a lot going on in the city on Canada Day weekend. If you're trying to put an Argo game to go up against some of those other things, you're not winning, unfortunately, because people still see this as an expense that's really hard. I understand you can go to a game, park, eat. Some people said about $50 for two people, or sorry, both each person. That's still a lot of money for a family. I still think that the Argos have to find a way. Well, this is the CFL's thing. They got to find a way. They're prioritizing TV right now in a way with these start times. they got to throw at least 1 or 2 games in the afternoon on a weekend, so you can give those families a chance, and then you can throw out a family deal to entice families to come. They've done it in the past. I know they've done those in the past, but you can't really market a family game when it's the 7 o'clock start on a weeknight or a Sunday night. That's a tough one. Saturday's easier. Fridays are easier. Sunday and Monday are not so much. So I it's a positive because they, as I said, it's a positive because they went up from last year. They got to ride that momentum. Everything is trending in the right direction for this team. If they continue to play like this, and maybe if they could get a little more media promotion, because now with hockey dying down, basketball dying down, maybe the sports coverage will shift a little bit. Although the Blue Jays are still playing, maybe there can be a little bit of that shift where they get a little bit of the attention. Maybe that'll force a few more people to come out.
And maybe
Because
frustration with the Blue Jays might lead to some people wanting to come check out a home team that's doing a little better.
well, that should be I mean, it's not an easy sell because I know there are still people who view this as, well, it's a 9-team league. How bad could you be in a 9-team league? Well, ask some of the teams who have really struggled this year. Just the number of teams never ever really is a proper way of showing what a team is, what the league is about. Still a very competitive league, even with 9 teams. We don't have enough cities in Canada to have, the 20. We only have 7 Canadian NHL teams, people. I always use that excuse. We only have 7 Canadian NHL teams. The only way the CFL could ever have more teams is if they go into the States, and they've tried that. It's
In
not
there, that
been there, done that. That's my rant.
yeah, and I'll take a different tack as far as the attendance is concerned. I think it's a little difficult on the back end of a long weekend for people to have the energy to go to another travel into town or
3 hour
whatever.
football game.
Yeah,
Must win a go.
but here's the thing: as far as the game is concerned, and I mean that specific game and how it fits into the game, the excitement that game had and generated was a real good excitement, and I really believe. At least from the media perspective, if you listen to the experts, they talk about how interesting it is to have Chad Kelly. That he's probably a good quarterback, and we always talk every year about, are there good quarterbacks? We've discussed, in the Eastern Division, the quarterback with we have now. We know that Mazzoli will be starting against his old team, the Ticats, for Ottawa. You know, there are 4 pretty good quarterbacks in the Eastern Division, and that's an important. If you believe Bolivar Mitchell can be the kind of quarterback that he's been, if you believe Mazzoli can be the kind of quarterback that he's been, and if we've got Chad Kelly here, and then we've got in Montreal, we've got Cody Fajardo, who it looks like a good set of quarterbacks in the Eastern Division, which means the Eastern Division should be very competitive. And I really like the idea that the Argos are coming up against Montreal next, and that's going to be a good test because Montreal's a very proud team. They've had a little hard luck, and they haven't done as well as they feel they can. And I think a lot of experts agree with them as well, even though they were handicapped by the ownership changeover and the flight of a lot of key players that left that team. They've done a masterful job of recovering under those circumstances. I'm looking forward to that game, is what I'm telling you, Dave.
It's a game that if that's going to be two top teams in the East going up against each other. For Montreal, they're going to want to show that they can go up. They can. The Argos have a target on their back now, right? I'm looking forward because you want to see competition. I want to see competition. I've liked some things that Montreal have done. I've also seen Montreal give away games or just continue to leave some doubt in my mind of how good they can be. Just
And
because
how good the team that they're going to play is going to be respected. And then, like the right now, I think the Argos have to be considered one or two as far as the best teams in the league. They got to be one or two. I mean, paper, rock, scissors. BC beat Winnipeg. Well, Toronto beat Winnipeg in the Grey Cup. BC beat Winnipeg, and Toronto beat BC. So that must put them at least second in that group of three, who are the top three.
Yeah, I would say so. You know, this is the thing maybe about the CFL this year that I've grown to admire a bit more because it's not looking like Winnipeg is the runaway favorite. They're a good team. I still
Mm-hmm.
think if you're asking me today who I think is going to make it out of the West of the Grey Cup, I'm still leaning towards Winnipeg. But you can see other teams now that are capable of matching them. And for me, that's something the CFL is needed. They need other teams to step up and say, "No, we can match up against this team."
Well, it's got to raise hope. With the results of last week and the results of this week, have to give hope to teams like Calgary and Saskatchewan, who when they get their chance to play those two big teams in their division, they know they're beatable, and that's something that going into this game that the Argos played with BC, they didn't look beatable. Winnipeg, when they met BC, they didn't look beatable. So this makes it, to your point, it makes it a very interesting season because really, maybe not the playoff structure is, up for grabs, but one thing's for sure: who finishes first, second, or third is under these circumstances.
Oh, for sure. Like eh, if you're looking at the West, the number 3 spot is the most intriguing one to me. Because it feels like 1 and 2, I wouldn't say are locked up. Because it's if you're saying everything's locked up 4 weeks into the season, you're just asking for trouble. But it's clear that there's two teams that are better than the rest. But which team is going to make the improvements within the next, this next period to lay claim to that third place? Right now, many would say Saskatchewan because Calgary has looked, not like
Calgary's
Calgary.
looked like they've slipped, while
Yeah,
Saskatchewan is looking like maybe they can do something.
yeah. But we've also seen teams get off to hot starts and kind of lose a little bit, or we've seen teams find a way. Calgary, I can't say for sure that they're out because they found ways to get themselves back into it. So I'm I'm optimistic that the third place team is gonna whoever gets it will earn it, and it will be a very big battle. And it could shape up to be a pretty decent finish for it. The East, I mean, that could be a situation where the third team. Let's just say that there might be two teams that should want it, but aren't playing as if they want it. Ottawa.
I think Ottawa's going to start
Well,
as
let's
that.
see
If
how.
Rizzoli can be the guy that I think he can
Mhm.
be, he's hopefully, the biggest problem with him is his health, not
Yeah,
his ability.
it's interesting that his first game of the season is going to come in Hamilton. So
Hmm.
that's going to be an interesting one. That's going to be a must-watch game. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. For him, it's never. It's. I mean, ability has had his issues, but ever since the injury, we've seen a decline in that play. But that's also because injuries do take their toll. And he's. But yeah, if Ottawa gets the quarterback play that we know that Mazzoli can provide, they should be able to get the third in the East. It could challenge for second. It's definitely a possibility. And it showed. I mean, Ottawa did enough to beat Edmonton last week, but enough isn't going to be good enough. They really gonna need that quarterback to step up, and we'll see. I'm very intrigued to see how Mazzoli handles. I'm hoping that because they were so careful that he is totally ready, and there's not this idea he's been forced. I don't think they're forcing him at all, but I just hope that this is why it's taken this long for Mazzoli to get in because they really want to make sure he is ready, and there's no doubts he'll be able to perform.
Well, the cartwheeling Adams, this is a different Adams with Ottawa, looked really good against Edmonton. Then, we always are stuck qualifying that statement because of Edmonton's inability to score and not looking very effective. They're going back to Cornelius. So, what Ottawa did, if we can talk a little bit about that game, Ottawa wins 26-7 against the Edmonton Elks. Chris Jones is on 1 year contracts, four of them. He's not that hard to dispose of. And I'm not suggesting that he should be disposed of at this time. But from a trending perspective, it can happen, from a trending perspective, because the team is not trending to look better. It's trending to look worse. Is that Chris Jones's fault? Maybe, maybe not. But here's the thing, it's a little easier to fire him than it is to fire the players. That's, and the decisions have been made. The key decision is they've got a quarterback signed that they felt was their number one quarterback. Early in the season, he's been sat out. Now he's coming back in again. How does he deal with that confidence now? That's my question.
Well, that's the tough one. When you bench a quarterback and then you put him back in, that's tough to just say, all right, you got to save ourselves, save my bacon. And man, that is just such a tough position. And this is where Chris Jones, because he is both the guy who builds the roster and coaches the roster, it's all on him. Like some people say, "Oh, will it be deserving if they decide to fire him?" Well, he's the one leading the whole thing, right? Just like if Orlando Steinhardt doesn't get the job done, he's in that same boat too in a lot of ways. That's the position they put themselves in. And for Chris Jones, I said it all along. As soon as he signed Taylor Cornelius to that deal, I said that it was a wrong decision to be giving that type of commitment to a quarterback who I didn't think earned it yet. There was maybe a potential where he could be that guy, but they paid him as if they thought he was the guy. And then they said, okay, if we can surround him with a decent weapon, that'll get him going. It hasn't been enough just because there are bigger flaws than just the quarterback, in my opinion, in Edmonton. There are mistakes being made. I don't know if it's a coach's issue. I don't know if it's a personnel issue, but it is not going well right now, and they don't have necessarily the talent to get them out of it. So if you're Edmonton, you don't want to turn into the next Ottawa where this is becoming a long. I mean, they're kind of there right now,
Quarterback, it becomes that. That's what it becomes.
but
There's two ways to sign a quarterback. You sign him for what he's done or what you think he's capable of doing. Having done some really good stuff, it's easy to repeat that behavior, but to assume that a quarterback can become that kind of player, that's really taking a shot. That's why I agree with you that contract was a little premature. I mean, to use a hockey term, he needed a bridge contract. Show me what you've got.
yeah, but at the same time, it's nice to bet on these guys, but Edmonton locked themselves into these guys. Dane Evans could have been an option. I think they've looked at Dane Evans. Cody Fajardo could have been an option. There were options out there better than Taylor Cornelius, but Edmonton decided, you know what, we're going to go in this direction. I thought it was short-sighted. And look, you don't have a guarantee that you're going to get the other guys. I understand that, but it hasn't worked. How much can you really hope that it's going to turn around?
Well, I think they were betting on his physical stature more than they were with his history. The stature of his history. He's a big guy. He's mobile, has a great arm, and okay, so he checks all the boxes except for one: experience. That's an important box to check.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I just don't know how Edmonton can feel like that. Like they've got to. They'll have. I think they'll have to write it out this season based on the way things are going. But if this is another lackluster season, I know you're gonna hate to have to start all over again. But
I can't even fathom. I don't even like the idea of seeing Edmonton be a bad team this year. I have too many friends that are Edmonton fans, and I love the Edmonton Eskimos as a franchise that historically is emblematic of the Canadian Football League and historical in context all the time. Whenever you think of the greatest teams in the history of the Canadian Football League, the Edmonton Eskimos were, now the Edmonton Elks were and are. That double E is what we see. So It's not good. You're right.
And look, like there are ways to turn things around, but you have to do it in the right way as well. Like I'm thinking, some people are saying, why isn't Trey Ford playing right now? I would not want Trey
He
Ford,
wasn't even dressed.
but I know what I don't want him to be exposed to this right now. The young player, you want.
Well, what are you saying then? What you're saying then is that maybe the coaching, or we talk about this as well. You have to put a quarterback in a position to be successful. I'm afraid that in Edmonton, the quarterbacks are not in a position to be successful, appear not to be. So, therefore, it's very easy to suggest that the problem in Edmonton is whoever is implementing a plan, and it may not be suited for the quarterback that's under center. And that's what needs to be done. They have to put this kid or whomever they put in there to put him in a position where he can win. The Argos quarterback, I hate to go back to Kelly, he's not expected to do that much. And we heard the coach talk about, I wanted to do this. You could see that he's the guy that's orchestrating the game. He's using the talents of Kelly, but making sure that Kelly is insulated. This is what has to happen in Edmonton. They need their young quarterback to be better insulated. He's been hung out to dry. He's looked bad because of the pressure on him. He's looked bad because, a lot of players were dropping balls. His last start, that's what happened to him. A lot of balls were dropped. That's not the quarterback's fault.
Yeah, it's not his fault, but then who? The thing is who's the one who's answering for this?
It'll
That's
be Jones. I think it'll be Jones. They can't afford, if let me put it this way. If halfway through the season they have no chance to make the playoffs, and that's a terrible place to be. That is a horrible prediction that I'm not making, but just stating. He won't be with. They'll fire Jones. They have no choice. If they're not a better team halfway through the season, which is they've gone through almost 25%. Well, not even close, but still, you get what I'm saying. They've got to show some improvement. This is what they're not doing. This is what's frustrating for Edmonton Elk fans, that the team doesn't look any better in Game 3 than it did in Game 1, and they weren't good in Game 1.
and they're not showing any sign that they're going to get better. That's the
That's got
problem.
to happen.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know how long they can wait for this, but it's going to be an interesting situation.
Montreal, we talked about, will be playing the Argos next. They lost to Winnipeg 17-3. How much of that game by Winnipeg was revenge and anger and basically taking it out on the Montreal Alouettes? Quite a bit by my guesstimation.
Yeah, probably. I would say so.
I wouldn't have wanted to play that team after they lost to BC.
No, probably you definitely don't. No, because I mean, for Winnipeg, you know, I probably got a little too caught up in the whole they got dominated by BC a little bit. Look, good
Eh,
teams can have a bad day. And they proved against Montreal that yeah, it might have just been a bad day. Um so if I yeah, Montreal, the tough part about that one is like I was watching them put together a nice drive. It's William Stanback who fumbles the football. They were putting together another nice drive where Julian Grant catches a pass and he runs it down almost pretty much into scoring position. One or two plays later, Fajardo throws an interception. And to me, it's like you cannot do that against a team like Winnipeg. You can't. And if Jason Moss, I mean, this is for head coach Jason Moss, this was a good game to show the guys. See what happens when we're not at our best. When we make mistakes,
ball
it comes
security.
back to bite us.
Ball security. Important factor in football. You waste a lot. Part of it, I think, is the frustration of a team when they do really well and march down the field, and then something like that happens. It's a real it kind of undercuts the momentum that you've created, and it creates a negative momentum. This Montreal team now, they're going to be playing again next week against a pretty good team. They're going from Winnipeg to BC, and in this case, 2 weeks in a row, they're going to be playing a team that's really good, that might be a little ticked, and Montreal's really going to have some character building here, because they're going to be playing some really tough games. And just imagine after that, then they play Toronto. So this is a team that is going to find their game. I think Montreal can do it. I think they're a really good team, but it's tough in an 18 game season. You're not always playing a team that plays at their level. Sometimes you play a team that doesn't play at its level, positively and or negatively. Of course, you play teams that play the way they're supposed to, but that's the thing about an 18 game season. It's not all, it's not all in one. This is something. There's lots of other factors. The team is building. The coaches are trying to work out a plan, and that's what makes it difficult. So if you're a Montreal fan, you're going from Winnipeg to BC to Toronto. So this is 3 games that maybe will, in the end of this conversation, remember that Coach Dinwiddie talked about self scouting. This is going to be a great opportunity for Montreal to self scout.
Yeah, no, for sure. And but these are the types of stretches where you could really establish. It's a good test for Montreal early because, as you said, they can scout these matchups now, and then when they prepare for it later in the future, they can get a good sense, right? But as Ryan Dinwiddie told us, like teams tend to change things after a few weeks in the season. They get that by halfway through the season. They really get a chance to tweak and reinvent certain things. For Montreal, this will definitely be one of those games where it's like, okay, we can definitely show we're good, or we can show that maybe we're just not ready yet. I mean, they
They
could,
need the pre-injury standback.
yeah, they do. No, they really do. Um, it's possible. I think he lost weight, so he's putting himself in a position to be a better option, um,
Quicker.
quicker option, a more durable, better conditioning. Right. I think that's something that's important for a running back is being able to handle that workload. You
His
have to be,
body be able to withstand the style, because that means he has to change his style too, because he was a bowling ball.
yeah,
Like the Argo fan seeing Willett, same thing.
yeah,
Can't
in a lot of
bring me
ways.
down. Can't bring me down. You're not bringing me down. Now he's saying, now you're not going to be able to find me. I'm going to make some moves. Well, we'll see how that fits into his mentality, if you will.
No, for sure. Like that's the toughest. That's the toughest challenge for running back, really, especially in the CFL, because they're not, in a lot of ways, they're not getting 20 carries a game, unless you're Montreal and you're willing to maybe give your running backs that much. But in a Jason Moss offense, I'm not expecting 20 carries a game. So that's a challenge, right? Some running backs like the consistent consistency, and some really like just what they're gonna pick and choose when they can make the big gains. So it will be interesting to see how Montreal finds a way to work stand back in a little bit more. I think it's needed, but maybe it's going to be tough because these aren't games where I feel like Montreal is going to be able to control and get a lead. I feel like that's maybe been an issue for Montreal where they haven't been able to build a lead and say let's just let Williams stand back close it for us.
Yeah, and it's very important that Montreal with Fajardo, he offers them, again, it's those boxes we talk about: mobility, a good arm, and experience. Right, that's the big thing that he has, and he's not playing with his knee brace now. As he did last year, he was handicapped, literally and figuratively. So we'll see how well he does. I'll give you the last word for the show today.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting week. I mean, as I said, that Ottawa Hamilton game is going to probably be the must see game of the week, just because of the matchups there. And then yeah, let's see how Montreal, how they handle BC at home. BC is a very tough team at home, and yeah, some very intriguing matchups early on already. So we'll see how teams adjust this early in the season.
He's David Morassutti. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching CFL Talk, airing live Mondays at 9 p.m. Today, Tuesday, because of the football game. Yesterday's show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Network. For CFL Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Don't forget to subscribe to Candid Frank Stanisci on YouTube. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody.